Hey guys, let's talk about Azmodan's rework. Blizzard just announced that they are officially reworking Azmodan. He was on the list for a little while, and they said that he was on a short list. The reason that they're reworking him, and all the details of the rework are going to be in this video, and I will link this article that kind of nicely summed up everything in the description below. So Azmodan is getting his rework, and the reason why is because when you went Q build, you had no reason to use E. When you went E build, you had no reason to go Q. And they felt like this was kind of unintuitive, as most heroes can still use all of their abilities. For example, if you go Q build with Lily, you're still going to be blinding people. If you go W build with Lily, you're still going to be using Q. If you go blind build in Lily, still going to be using Q. At any point with just about any hero in the game, even if you completely put all your talents into one ability, you're still going to use all your other abilities. Why was it different on Azmodan? That's what they were wondering too, and that's why they wanted to rework him. So let's get to it. What is Azmodan getting? What are his changes? Ultimately, his rework is about two primary goals: improving teamfight capabilities and getting him out of lane. I like those. That's pretty good. Now, let's talk a little bit about what they're doing. So let's scroll down to his abilities. To start off, his Q is getting a baseline quest, which is essentially his annihilation stacks. It would go up to 500 extra damage, and he's getting two ways to stack this up. Instead of him having the talent where he could kill minions to go up to 500, or he can hit enemy heroes to go up to, what was it, like 5 extra damage times 30? 150 extra damage, something like that. Those are both combined. Now when he hits heroes, he gets 2 stacks, and when he hits a minion that dies within 1.5 seconds, he gets 2 stacks. And there are builds to give him stacks easier based off of what you go at level 1. These stacks last the entire game, making it to where he scales really well into the late game. They made his Q easier to dodge from long range, however, it's a faster cast time, making it harder to dodge at short range. The range has been decreased a little bit, but overall it is still quite long enough to be sitting in mid lane and use his Q quickly up at top lane to kill a minion wave, or bottom lane and leave a minion wave, which is awesome. As W doesn't have 2 charges anymore, can be cast while he's using his E, as well as it now burns naturally and has a shorter attack range. The reason it has shorter attack range is it could get closer to the minion wave and burn more minions at a time. Overall, this is a pretty big buff to W in my opinion. All Shall Burn no longer can be channeled infinitely, which honestly, most of the time when you started channeling on someone, they would simply walk out of it anyways, which made it to where channeling it for longer than 2.5 seconds was kind of impossible to begin with. Now, if you channel it for 2.5 seconds, it deals damage the entire time, and if it goes all the way through the entire duration, it deals an additional burst of damage. He still moves slow while channeling it. The cooldown has been increased, makes sense because it's no longer like just steady damage, it now gets a little bursty at the end of it. And its mana cost was changed from 12 per second to 30 mana flat, meaning that it doesn't take as much mana. You get to really burn people quickly, and they are punished more for staying in it longer. The General of Hell, which was his trait that he could summon things, can now be cast on the minimap and has a small slope range. It's pretty easy. You can just kind of tap it on your map now. It's a little bit faster. You can still do it the old way, so you can pick it on certain people, but still cool. Demonic Invasion has been changed. It used to summon a bunch of demons that would push endlessly until they died, and they would last forever. Now, their health decays over 8 seconds. However, their health has been doubled, as well as they now explode when dying. So they push forward, they eventually die, and they explode, essentially taking the level 20 upgrade and shoving it into the original thing. I think this is really good. It kind of takes them away from the summon a bunch of minions, AFK push in bottom lane, and someone with wave clear just ruins his day. Or if they don't have wave clear, he wins immediately. Now it's a much more impactful, immediately activate, they all charge. I think it would be much better in team fights and still decent while sieging. You could definitely take the front walls with the exploding damage. So I definitely like the new changes. I think that it's more active and less just summon a bunch of things and let them just kind of attack until they die. He's losing his pool, which is more of a disappointment in the way that they've actually answered it. They made it a little bit easier to do, but at the same time, they dropped a lot of the value from it because it's a low cooldown, a low 30-second cooldown. However, the pool before wasn't a very long cooldown, and you had 2 procs of it. Now you only have one. I don't know. I think it's maybe a 50-50 change as the cooldown's been lowered enough to where it could be worth it. And it does make it a little bit easier for new players as they didn't realize they were supposed to drop the R down immediately before you use your Q. And you can activate this as it stands. It seems like it doesn't have a timer on it. So I'm assuming that you activate it and the cooldown doesn't go until you use your Q. Kind of neat, kind of not. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Talents. His 2 stacking talents have been removed because they were put baseline, and now he has 3 new ways of getting annihilation. For example, the first one makes it to where it's easier to kill minions, and after getting 200 stacks of the annihilation, you get 20% increased damage to minions and mercs. What I mean by that, it's not easier to kill minions, it's easier to get stacks off of minions that are killed by increasing the threshold. The Gluttony new functionality makes it to where the amount of annihilation granted from hitting heroes is increased by 1, which means instead of hitting a hero and getting 2, you would get 3 now. After getting 200 stacks, each enemy hit by the globe reduces its cooldown by 0.25 seconds. What this says here is each enemy, not enemy hero, meaning you hit a wave of 6 minions, the 3 front, 3 back, 1 in the middle. You're going to be reducing the cooldown by 1.5 seconds. However, if you were to hit a group of enemy heroes, say all 5 of the enemy heroes, you are reducing the cooldown by 2.5 seconds. Either way, in my opinion, this adds to the mage aspect of the Azmodan build. So, I really like this talent now. I think it's pretty cool. However, there's an auto attack build that's kind of growing on him as well. Basic attacks against heroes under 75% health grant 1 stack of annihilation. After getting 200 stacks of annihilation, heroes hit by a globe of annihilation take additional damage from your next basic attack equal to annihilation stacks, meaning it's doing at least 200 damage every auto attack after you hit with annihilation. That's a lot of damage with auto attacks, up to 400 bonus damage from auto attacks. That's incredible. Not to mention that that's already increased on your Q. So you land a Q on someone, it does 400 extra damage, then you auto attack him doing 400 extra damage. Wrath is likely going to turn Azmodan into a DPS beast. Down to his level 4, there were a few changes to his level 4 talents. They removed his Hellish Hirelings. They made it to where his Army of Hell summons Demon Warriors. Summon Demon Warriors summons an additional warrior, but its cooldown is increased by 10 seconds. Love that. New functionality on Hellforged Armor, which was moved from level 13. Demon Warrior and Lieutenant grant 35 armor and last 4 seconds longer. What does this actually mean, though? Lieutenant used to grant armor to the unit that you casted it on. However, Demon Warriors can be just cast blank. Does that mean that you get armor on yourself? I don't know, but that would be pretty cool. Battleborn, new functionality. Basic attacks reduce the cooldown of Summon Warriors by 0.5 seconds and Demon Lieutenant by 1 second. Again, guys, auto attack build Azmodan seems pretty cool. It's going to be doing a lot of damage, and it's going to be lowering the cooldown of your trait, which means that you get more stuff off. One thing to note, guys, basic attacks reduce the cooldown of Demon Warrior and Lieutenant. This does not say against enemy heroes, meaning you can pop a trait in a lane, auto attack every second, lowering the cooldown by, I don't know, 15, 30, I don't know, whatever you can do. So you could effectively cut the cooldown in half of your Demon Lieutenant, or just keep the cooldown low of your Demon Warrior, pushing in your lane and another lane. Meaning his specialist playstyle, even in this auto attack build, is still viable. Let's talk about his level 7. Infernal Globe was removed. Bound Minion was removed. Gluttonous Ward was removed. What does he get instead? Art of Chaos. If Globe of Annihilation hits 2 or more heroes, 25 mana cost is refunded. If 3 or more heroes, you gain 5 Annihilation. This means that you can stack your Q really, really quickly and without losing a lot of mana. However, with all of these other stack talents for level 1, I don't know if this is worth it because it caps at 400. Meaning at the point that you've capped it at 400, this talent becomes null and void. Master of Destruction, E. It was moved from level 1. New functionality, All Shall Burn's final damage hits all enemies in a large area. Each hero hit grants 2 stacks of annihilation. This allows his E build to do a lot of AoE damage in team fights as well as stack up his annihilation really quickly. Bombardment Q, casting Globe of Annihilation increases your basic attack range by 50% and can hit 2 additional targets for 3 seconds. Wait a second. So you're telling me that you can hit 4 or 5 people with a Q, then increase the damage of your auto attacks by the amount of stacks you have, followed by hitting 2 additional targets for 3 seconds, as well as empowering each basic attacks, granted more annihilation. This auto attack build is looking better and better, also increasing the range by 50%. So his auto attack range was already something like a 5, which means it should be like a 7.5 now, being like an old Hanzo attack range. That's crazy, guys. His auto attack build is looking better and better every talent tier. Level 10, we already talked about his ultimate abilities. Let's talk about his level 13. Hedonism and infused power were removed. Now he has Brutish Vanguard. His demon warriors get more health and slow the movement speed of nearby enemies. Pretty strong. But remember that their movement speed was already lowered, so they can't really keep up with enemy heroes. The slow is decent in team fights and decent for getting away, but not great for chasing. Cydia's Kiss, Q, reduces the channel time of all shall burn by 5.5 seconds. If all shall burn channels to its full duration on a hero, Azmodan is healed for 5% of his max health. It's okay. Why does it say Q, though? Q reduces the channel time of all shall burn by 5 seconds. Okay. So you land a Q. You cast a Q? I don't know. I don't know why it says Q there. Maybe someone in the comments can correct me or answer what the problem that is. Chain of Command, D. Demon Lieutenants increase the damage of nearby non-heroes by 25%. Pretty strong. Again, allows you to push. I would imagine the auto attack build, you would get this because you're lowering the cooldown of your trait so much. Allows you to push very hard outside of fights, and allows you to still join fights and do a lot. All of his level 16 talents were removed. Let's talk about his new ones. Total Annihilation. Globe of Annihilation deals an additional 3% of max health to heroes. That's pretty strong in his Q build, especially if you get the lowered cooldowns of it. You're tossing Q after Q after Q, doing a lot of damage and percent health. E, increase the range by 20%. If it's channeled to its full duration, its cooldown is reduced by 4 seconds. That's an 8-second cooldown reduced to a 4-second cooldown. It channels for 4 seconds, meaning it's effectively no cooldown. This right here at level 16 enables a full E build. And Hell Rift, if the channel lasts to its full duration, a Demon Warrior is summoned at your target, and Demon Warrior deals 100% increased damage. This is okay. I don't know if that's going to be that great, honestly, because you're already deciding what you want to do with your E build. Maybe if you go like a full Demon Warrior build, it might be okay, but there's not really a lot of Demon Warrior talents, so I don't think that's going to be that great. Let's talk about the level 20, Siege Breaker, his ultimate for his first, or sorry, his upgrade for his first ultimate. Azmodan summon units deal 50% increased damage to structures. Remember, they now explode. That's baseline now, and they now go in with more health, so being able to do 50% more damage to structures could likely take a keep on your own out of a surprise. So while the old one was great at dealing a lot of keep damage, this should be deal a lot of keep damage as well. Black Pool, Tides of Sin creates a black pool at the impact location, dealing light damage and reducing armor over 5 seconds to the enemy area. So they kind of give Black Pool back, but it doesn't really do anything that it used to do. So you activate Tides of Sin, you toss out a Q, and it reduces the armor. I think that's okay. Pride. After reaching 400 stacks of Annihilation, Globe of Annihilation's area is increased by 15% and increases damage by 100. Kind of reminiscent of Nazebo's thing, right? Like, if you can get to the 400 stacks early, then you can be really scary late game. That increased area of 15% is very large, because you need to remember how pi works, right? Like, you add 15% to the side, but it's actually effectively increasing the radius by much more than just that 15%. So let's look at Trample. Activate to dash a short distance, dealing damage and slowing enemies in the path. It's interesting, gives them an escape. Especially with the auto attack build, could be really nice, and on a 60-second cooldown allows you to do it usually once per fight. Ultimately, I think that the build that we're going to be seeing out of Azmodan is this auto attack build if they don't change any of the rest of these talents. So we'll see how this goes. It should be pretty cool. I'm excited for it, and from there we'll talk about Raynor in the next video. If you have anything else that you'd like to add to the Azmodan one, or if I made any mistakes, feel free to toss it in the comments below. And if you like my style of video, feel free to toss a subscribe and check out some of my other videos. I will have a Raynor one out as well as soon as possible.